Sharks are deservedly considered one of the most dangerous creatures on the planet. They're quick, treacherous, and incredibly aggressive. However, even such menacing predators have something to be afraid of. In this episode, you'll see the main enemy of the sharks and also learn about other dangerous animals. Orcas. Many people would consider orcas to be harmless, cute, and even kind creatures. Outwardly, they do seem so, but if you delve into their history a little better, it becomes clear that they're one of the most sophisticated predators of our time. There's a reason why scientists say orcas are 100 times more dangerous than sharks. Let's start with the alternative name for these creatures, and it goes something like this: the killer whale. These largest carnivorous dolphins reach 30 feet in length and have a mass up to 8 tons. The coloration of the orca's back and sides is black, the throat is white, and there's a light longitudinal stripe on the belly. In addition to its amazing size, the killer whale is also distinguished by its habitat. It's believed that these animals are distributed throughout the world's oceans. They can be spotted both close to shores and far out in open waters. Orca spends almost all its time underwater at a depth of 65 feet or more. It orients itself perfectly and no less successfully explores the territory, searching for lunch. In this case, by the way, orcas are helped by the innate function of echolocation. But even despite it, hunting at too great depths is not comfortable for these animals. That's why people often notice orcas in shallow waters. These mammals live in groups of several dozen individuals. Almost always this group consists of relatives, i.e. adult killer whales, and their cubs. Despite this, these animals cannot be called particularly faithful. During mating, they can often change partners. Be that as it may, this does not affect their survival and hunting skills at all. Young individuals get a lot of hunting tactics from their mother, as well as while swimming with older ones. Skilled orcas take their cubs with them and show them how to hunt properly. They choose a suitable target, drive their victim into an awkward position, and let the youth finish what they've started. Thus, a small orca feels the taste of blood at a small age and immediately gets used to it. Otherwise, the orca's diet can include anything from penguins to sea lions and even young whales. When attacking, orcas act in one of two main ways: either tire the enemy to the point of exhaustion, or for a few right moves, chew its throat. For the second, for example, orcas have amazing jaws, with the force of the bite exceeding in strength even that of a white shark. And it would be alright if orcas were just hardy or strong predators, but they're famous for their unique intelligence. Only these creatures can track down a penguin, notice that it's jumped onto an iceberg, and try to throw it off. Other creatures have never shown such skills. I'm sure after hearing a bit about orcas, some of you have started to think that you'll never go to the open seas again. Who knows, maybe those killer whales will be waiting for you. If this is true, you know that fear is not the answer. Danger awaits a man even on land, and I would not say that it looks less serious there. For example, there's a fat-tailed scorpion on land. You may not have ever heard about it before, but you should know this. It's a creature that's learned to shoot venom. First things first, this scorpion species is considered one of the most dangerous scorpions in the world. Its injection leads to severe poisoning and is often fatal. These monsters can be more than 4 inches in length. They live in deserts, semi-deserts, and dry foothills. But don't think that since it's always hot around them and there's a lot of rocks, sand, and other distractions, they can't notice someone. They do. Hot-tailed scorpion will never miss the enemy past his eyes because in addition to eagle vision, it's also able to feel the fluctuations of the soil and even the air. No bug, mouse, or agile primate can hide from it. Scorpion always, first of all, marks its territory. That is the place where it will not tolerate strangers. Its brethren are also considered to be strangers. As soon as the area is delineated, it will begin to exterminate all living things within its borders. And the next stage, when there's nothing left alive, is hibernation. The scorpion, it turns out, can reduce its metabolism to 30% and hibernate for a year and a half, thanks to the thick tail with fat reserves hidden. But don't think that if this scorpion has gone into hibernation, its enemies can calmly walk through its territory and not worry about anything. This creature only needs a couple of minutes to fully come out of this state and take up the extermination of all living creatures. The poison of the scorpion is deadly, not only for small things but also for humans. People with heart problems are in a special risk group. Nevertheless, for the first 7 to 8 hours, they will not feel any consequences from the sting. Then the affected place will catch fire as if it were burnt. A classic intoxication awaits the victim: headache, vomiting, convulsions. If help doesn't arrive in time, the respiratory arrest will follow. But that's not all. As I said earlier, the fat-tailed scorpion can shoot a toxin. One spit and the eyes of the enemy will pop out. Getting on the mucous membranes, the toxin causes severe burning, discouraging any appetite in other predators. Yes, the scorpion usually shoots at those who try to attack it. Golden poison frog. That's the name of the next creature we're going to talk about. Before you ask, it's one of the most venomous vertebrates on Earth. To give you a better understanding, one touch is enough to send about 500 adult humans to the other world. And no, I didn't write that out of my head. It's believed that one such frog can contain up to 1 milligram of poison. At the same time, the lethal dose for humans is only 2 micrograms, and a milligram contains 1,000 micrograms. In short, the Colombians, that is the inhabitants of the territory where this creature is distributed, not for nothing call this golden poison frog terrible. Ironic, but it feels like Mother Nature knew how toxic a creature she was creating and made it very colorful on purpose, saying the following: "Look here, I'm very poisonous and I'm here, don't mess with me." Except that in reality, this bright coloration is almost unrealistic to spot in an equally colorful jungle, hence the problems with casual contact between golden poison frogs and humans. You might be surprised there's more to come. The situation's been aggravated by the fact that these creatures live above the heads of tourists and locals, that is, in the trees. Their bodies are so adapted to the new way of life that these guys decided to completely get rid of the webs between the legs. Instead of them, the animals have acquired the so-called Velcro. They allow you to crawl on vertical surfaces, even with the head down. However, even this does not save. Sometimes they fall to the ground, and this very fall is soft. The poison frog lands, for example, on people's hands. It doesn't care. But the person, if he does nothing, in a matter of minutes, he will begin to feel worse and worse. Arrhythmia will appear first. A little later, it'll be joined by paralysis of the muscles, of the lungs, and limbs. And then it's fatal. No one still knows why such a small frog produces so much poison. The only adequate speculation concerns their diet. They say these creatures devour the local poisonous insects and borrow the poisons from them. But why doesn't the frog poison itself? By the way, it's curious that sometimes these frogs can even devour their own brethren. The only reason why this animal will refuse to bite smaller frogs is if they're cubs. Interestingly, the amphibian treats the younger generation with full responsibility. Since their cubs are very small, they spend all their childhood on the back of their parents. It looks funny and cute at the same time. Hooded Pitawee. Pitawee are small but extremely dangerous birds living in the forests of New Guinea and Indonesia. They're dangerous not because of their sharp beaks or even their long claws, but because their skin and feathers contain the poison batrachotoxin, the same as in the golden poison frog. Both frogs and birds get the poison from eating insects. In the case of Pitawee, for example, scientists have found that the poison does not affect it because of the immunity developed in the process of evolution. The bird itself is quite small. Without knowing about this, no one would ever think that this feathered creature could be so dangerous. In length, it rarely exceeds 10 inches and weighs only 2.5 ounces. Its feathers, just like the skin of the frog, are brightly colored and also warn that you'd better not approach it. By the way, I was wondering if Pitawee or some other creatures exclusively eat fireflies, would they also begin to glow in the dark, just like the beach in the Maldives? Write your opinion on the score in the comments. In the meantime, I'll tell you a little more about these miracle birds. The locals tried to eat the meat of this bird and even learned to neutralize its poison in the process of cooking. However, the meat was still too bitter. As a result, it was decided to leave the birds alone, to do so that their population would no longer be threatened. Inland taipan. Our next guest also made sure that it and its loved ones are not in danger today, And it was not necessary to change its coloring to a brighter one or to give people a taste of its bitter meat. It was enough just to become the most venomous species of snakes in the world. These snakes inhabit dry plains and deserts, hiding in cracks and breaks in the soil, making them extremely difficult to detect. Strange, isn't it? Being the most venomous snake in the world, it hides from humans. For what? Why? It's not possible to give the exact answer to this question, of course. Unfortunately, our scientists are not famous for their ability to talk to snakes as Harry Potter was, so it's anyone's guess. To date, people think the following things on this score. It's believed that the inland taipan is not in a hurry to attack anyone because it's trivially uninteresting. It's also not looking for larger individuals. For the reptile, all sorts of small creatures will go, and it's satisfied with them, though in theory he'd be strong enough to knock out anyone. So those are mice, rats, gophers, and other small mammals that are on the menu of this Australian reptile. To make sure that the dinner did not run away, the creature makes many bites at once. Is it worth saying that the prey dies almost instantly? At the same time, it uses its poison very rarely while hunting. Almost always, the taipan uses the toxin only for the purpose of self-defense. Hippopotamus. Who would think that a hippopotamus we all know about is in the list of the most dangerous creatures on the earth? But the paradox is that we do not consider it the most threatening animal just because everyone's known about it for a long time. In fact, this creature could easily be scarier than a lion and a shark combined. The fact is that the hippopotamus is not afraid of people at all, and also does not skimp to show its aggressive character. On average, the mass of males reaches 1.8 US tons, but there are hippos weighing more than 4 tons. Females are not much inferior to males in size, but their main difference is in psychology. Females are much less likely to show aggression. These manners, in the case of hippos, are not always aimed at an uninvited guest, some wild cat or person. They boggle to such an extent that sometimes they can easily send to glory even their fellows, being at odds over their prey. According to official data, the hippopotamus is the most dangerous animal in Africa. It's much more dangerous than lions, buffaloes, and even leopards. Who'd have thought it, right? Although if you look into its mouth, everything immediately falls into place. 36 huge teeth and jaws with abnormal strength are capable of shattering the bones of the opponent at a time. And the fangs of this crack brain from the animal world grow throughout his life and can sometimes reach 6.5 pounds each. Well, and here are a couple more interesting facts about the hippo. They have a wonderful hearing, both underwater and outside. An adult animal consumes 110 to 150 pounds of food per day. The length of their intestines is about 200 feet, because of which the hippopotamus can digest food with a much higher degree of digestion than is observed in, for example, elephants. Therefore, the hippo's diet is half the weight of the food eaten by other thick-skinned animals. You'll never see a tiny hippo because from the very birth, they weigh about 88 pounds and have a body length of about 3.5 feet. Bullet ant. To the question, what is strength, everyone will find his own answer. Some will say in truth, others will say in toxin, and still others will shout in size. I can agree with the first two versions, but the third absolutely goes by the wayside. After all, the bullet ant proves by its own example that size is not the main thing. These representatives of the species of tropical ants have the strongest venom, surpassing the strength of the effect of the venom of any wasp or bee. At the same time, they usually do not exceed an inch in length, with 0.2 inches accruing in their sting. These insects prefer to stay where it's hot and humid. These creatures live in Central and South America, mostly in lowland forests. And believe me, you'd better not go into their territory, because if these ants bite, it would be very unpleasant. According to people who were not lucky enough to avoid an encounter with these aggressive insects, the sting of an ant is comparable to a gunshot wound. Against this background, local tribes have even developed a special ritual in which they oblige teenagers to stick their hand into the house of these ants and tolerate the bites. If one passes the test, he can be considered a man. If not, he's not yet ready to become an adult. Tourists also try to pass this challenge for the sake of interest, but is it worth it? They say that after such an attack from ants, hands can be paralyzed for the next few days. and sometimes there can be fatal outcomes. And it's not strange to hear about fatal outcomes since the poison of these ants is used in medicine. And abuse of any medicine, as we know very well, can have irreversible and terrible effects. That's about it. Write in the comments what animal seemed to you the most dangerous one. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel.